Shadowing is one of the most powerful techniques for improving fluency in English because it emphasizes continuous speaking without long pauses, which is essential for developing natural communication skills. Unlike traditional language learning methods where learners often stop to think about grammar rules or search for the right words, shadowing requires immediate repetition of what is heard, mimicking the speaker's rhythm, tone, and pace. This simultaneous listening and speaking process forces the brain and mouth to work together, creating neural pathways that make producing English sentences more automatic over time. By repeatedly hearing and speaking the language in real time, learners gradually internalize common expressions, sentence structures, and intonation patterns, which helps them speak more smoothly and confidently. One of the major benefits of shadowing is that it trains learners to maintain a steady flow of speech. When learners practice in this way, they are less likely to stop and hesitate because their brain becomes accustomed to processing English input while producing output at the same time. This constant engagement also improves the ability to think in English rather than translating from the native language, which is a critical step toward fluency. Additionally, shadowing helps learners become aware of the natural rhythm and stress patterns in English sentences, which is difficult to grasp through reading alone. By repeating the sentences exactly as the speaker pronounces them, learners gradually acquire a more native-like flow, reducing monotone or choppy speech. The technique also enhances listening comprehension because learners must pay close attention to every word, syllable, and nuance in the speaker's voice to replicate it accurately. This dual focus on listening and speaking reinforces language retention, making it easier to recall vocabulary and phrases during conversations. Over time, learners notice that they can speak more quickly, form complete sentences effortlessly, and respond in conversations without long pauses. By practicing regularly, even for a few minutes each day, shadowing gradually transforms hesitant speakers into more confident and fluent English users who can communicate naturally in real-life situations. Listening and repeating simultaneously is a core aspect of the shadowing technique, and it plays a crucial role in developing accurate pronunciation, intonation, and rhythm in English. When learners engage in this practice, they do more than just mimic sounds. They actively train their ears and mouths to work together in perfect harmony. By paying close attention to the speaker's tone, stress patterns, and pacing, learners begin to understand the subtle musicality of English, which often cannot be fully grasped through reading alone. This process helps learners move beyond simply recognizing words to actually reproducing them with natural fluidity, which is essential for clear and confident communication. The act of simultaneous listening and repeating forces the brain to process language in real time, which strengthens neural pathways that support automatic speech production. This method also helps learners become more sensitive to nuances in pronunciation. English is full of sounds that may not exist in a learner's native language, and these sounds can be difficult to produce accurately without hearing them in context. By shadowing a native speaker, learners repeatedly hear these sounds in natural speech and immediately practice replicating them. Over time, the mouth and tongue learn the correct positions and movements needed to produce these sounds accurately, which reduces the influence of a foreign accent and increases overall clarity. Beyond pronunciation, listening and repeating simultaneously enhances understanding of sentence rhythm and intonation. English relies heavily on stress patterns and pitch variations to convey meaning and emotion, and learners often struggle to grasp these through reading alone. Shadowing trains learners to pick up on these patterns subconsciously, making their speech sound more natural and expressive. Another important benefit is that this practice improves memory retention of vocabulary and phrases. By hearing words in context and repeating them instantly, learners create stronger mental associations, which makes it easier to recall these words during conversation. This dual engagement, listening closely while speaking, also strengthens concentration and active listening skills, which are essential for effective communication. As learners continue this practice, They find themselves gradually able to reproduce longer sentences and more complex structures with greater ease. Their listening comprehension improves simultaneously as they become attuned to the nuances of native speech, including contractions, linking sounds, and rhythm. This combination of enhanced listening, accurate pronunciation, and natural intonation gradually transforms hesitant speakers into more confident and fluent English users capable of expressing themselves clearly and naturally. Reading out loud is an essential part of language learning because it helps build confidence and reinforces speaking skills in a way that silent reading cannot. When learners read aloud, they actively engage the muscles involved in speech, including the lips, tongue, and vocal cords, which strengthens their ability to produce clear and accurate sounds. This physical aspect of speaking is often overlooked in traditional language learning, but it plays a vital role in developing fluent and natural speech. By practicing regularly, learners become more comfortable with the mechanics of speaking, reducing hesitation and nervousness, which are common barriers to effective communication. Reading out loud also allows learners to experiment with different tones, stress patterns, and pacing, giving them a deeper understanding of how English sounds in context. In addition to improving pronunciation, reading aloud helps learners internalize sentence structures and vocabulary. When learners speak the words instead of just seeing them, they engage multiple senses, which enhances memory retention and recall. This multisensory approach makes it easier to remember new words and phrases, especially when they are repeated consistently. Learners also develop a stronger sense of rhythm and intonation, which are crucial for conveying meaning and emotion in English. By hearing themselves speak, learners can notice patterns in the language that they might miss during silent reading, such as the rise and fall of pitch in questions or the emphasis on keywords in a sentence. This awareness of natural speech patterns gradually improves their ability to communicate clearly and effectively in everyday conversations. Reading out loud also provides an opportunity for learners to monitor and evaluate their own progress. When they hear themselves speak, they can identify areas where pronunciation or fluency needs improvement and adjust accordingly. This self-assessment builds confidence because learners can see measurable progress over time, which motivates them to continue practicing. Furthermore, reading aloud in combination with shadowing or listening exercises creates a dynamic learning experience that engages both the auditory and vocal aspects of language. It bridges the gap between understanding English and being able to use it actively, making speaking less intimidating. Over time, learners who read out loud regularly notice that their speech becomes smoother, their sentences more coherent, and their overall confidence in speaking English increases significantly, helping them participate more comfortably in conversations and express their ideas clearly. Consistent repetition is a fundamental aspect of mastering any language, and it is particularly effective in improving English speaking and reading skills. When learners practice the same sentences, phrases, or passages repeatedly, they reinforce their understanding of vocabulary, grammar, and natural sentence structures. This repetition allows the brain to form strong neural connections that make recalling words and constructing sentences faster and more automatic. Over time, learners begin to speak more fluently because they no longer need to pause and think about each word individually. Instead, the structures and expressions become ingrained, enabling them to focus on meaning and communication rather than the mechanics of language. This habitual practice also helps learners overcome common barriers such as hesitation, anxiety, and fear of making mistakes, which often hinder confident speech. Repetition is not just about memorization. It also enhances comprehension and the ability to use language in different contexts. By encountering the same words and sentence patterns multiple times, learners become familiar with how they function in conversation, allowing them to apply these structures naturally when speaking or writing. For example, repeatedly practicing common phrases or expressions helps learners respond quickly and appropriately why in real-life situations without having to stop and translate from their native language. Additionally, consistent repetition strengthens listening skills as learners become more attuned to the rhythm, intonation, and stress patterns of English. This dual benefit of speaking and listening practice accelerates overall language acquisition and improves communication efficiency. Another important advantage of repetition is that it builds confidence, as learners notice gradual improvement. Through repeated practice, they feel more capable of expressing themselves clearly and accurately. This confidence encourages more active participation in conversations, leading to further practice and reinforcement. Repetition also supports long-term retention of vocabulary and grammar, making it easier to recall information under pressure, such as during discussions, presentations, or exams. By integrating regular, repeated practice into their language routine, learners create a structured learning environment that continuously strengthens both receptive and productive skills. Over time, consistent repetition transforms hesitant, uncertain speakers into more fluent, self-assured English users who can communicate effectively in a variety of situations. Applying what they have practiced naturally and spontaneously ** recording yourself is an extremely valuable technique in language learning because it provides immediate feedback and allows learners to objectively evaluate their speaking skills. When learners record their own voice while reading or shadowing, they create an opportunity to listen to themselves from an external perspective, noticing mistakes or areas that may not be obvious. During live speaking, this can include pronunciation errors, unnatural intonation, awkward pauses, or incorrect stress patterns. Many learners are unaware of these issues while speaking because they are focused on forming sentences or remembering vocabulary. By playing back recordings, they can pinpoint specific aspects of their speech that need improvement, which makes practice much more targeted and effective. This self-monitoring process fosters a sense of responsibility for one's own learning and encourages more conscious and deliberate effort during practice. Recording oneself also helps track progress over time, which is highly motivating for learners. Often, improvements in speaking skills happen gradually, and it can be difficult to notice small changes day by day. Listening to past recordings allows learners to compare earlier attempts with current performance, making progress tangible and encouraging continued effort. This can increase confidence as learners are able to hear how their pronunciation, fluency, and intonation have developed. Furthermore, recording provides an opportunity to experiment with different speech patterns, pacing, and expression. Learners can try speaking more slowly, emphasizing certain words, or adopting a more natural intonation. Then listen to see how these adjustments affect clarity and comprehension. This trial-and-error approach accelerates learning because it combines practice with instant feedback, allowing learners to refine their skills efficiently. Another benefit of recording is that it enhances both speaking and listening abilities simultaneously. By hearing themselves as they speak, learners become more aware of how English sounds and the rhythm of natural speech. This awareness makes it easier to identify pronunciation mistakes, improve stress patterns, and adopt a more native-like flow. In addition, it helps learners develop self-correction habits as they learn to notice and fix errors independently rather than relying solely on a teacher or external feedback. Regularly recording and reviewing speech creates a feedback loop that strengthens speaking accuracy, fluency, and confidence, turning passive practice into an active, reflective, and highly effective learning process. * Practicing daily is one of the most important habits for mastering English, as consistent engagement with the language creates steady progress and builds long-term proficiency. Language learning is like exercising a muscle. The more often you use it, the stronger and more natural it becomes. Daily practice ensures that learners are regularly exposed to vocabulary, sentence structures, and pronunciation patterns, which reinforces memory and helps transfer knowledge from short-term to long-term retention. Even short, Focused sessions of 10 to 20 minutes every day can be more effective than occasional long sessions because frequent repetition keeps the language fresh in the mind and prevents forgetting. This consistent exposure allows learners to gradually internalize the rhythm, intonation, and flow of natural English speech, making it easier to recall words and phrases in real-life conversations. Daily practice also builds discipline and creates a learning routine that becomes an integral part of everyday life. When learners commit to practicing every day, it becomes a habit rather than a chore, reducing procrastination and increasing motivation. The routine encourages learners to explore different aspects of language, such as shadowing, reading aloud, or listening exercises, which strengthens both speaking and comprehension skills. Over time, these repeated daily efforts accumulate, leading to noticeable improvements in fluency, confidence, and overall communication abilities. Regular practice also helps learners overcome common obstacles such as hesitation, nervousness, and fear of making mistakes, as speaking English becomes a familiar and comfortable activity rather than an intimidating challenge. Another key benefit of daily practice is that it allows for continuous self-assessment and adjustment. Learners can notice gradual improvements in pronunciation, speed, and comprehension, which reinforces motivation and provides a sense of accomplishment. Daily engagement also encourages learners to experiment with new words, sentence structures, and conversational expressions, which expands their language repertoire. By practicing consistently, learners develop a stronger connection between listening, speaking, and thinking in English, reducing the need to translate from their native language. Over weeks and months, this constant practice leads to a more natural, spontaneous, and confident use of English. Incorporating daily practice into your routine may seem small at first, but it compounds into remarkable progress over time, turning hesitant speakers into confident communicators ready to express themselves effortlessly in any situation, and transforming language learning into an enjoyable journey of discovery and mastery.